Hey everyone, today we'll be looking at easily one of the strongest supports in the game right now, Rel, piloted by one of the very best support players in the game, Mickey X of G2. This champ has really taken over competitive play with her extremely high kill potential in lane, as well as the ability to just completely dominate teamfights later into the game with her insanely potent, reliable, and lightning fast engages. So, for this guide, we'll be giving you the 5 awesome tips that he uses to take over the game. And don't worry if you don't play Rel. Every single tip will work, at the very least, on other melee engaged supports, who are all the craze in the meta right now, if not even completely different archetypes. There's nothing like improving your Soraka by watching Rel go hyper aggressive, eh? To start, let's look at the result of our first great play, our first tip from Mickey here. We see him running back into lane just after 4 minutes. He instantly finds just the easiest looking engage onto this challenger Jhin, who very easily could have died if Kai'Sa had landed W, but either way, he has to base again instantly after getting to lane, leading to this CS lead over the next minute. How did he find such an easy, clean engage without the enemy support in lane? Well, let's take a look. So jumping back to the start of the lane, as you can see, they ended up having to leash while the enemy bot lane didn't, and with a melee versus melee support matchup in high elo, this generally means that you won't be getting the push. However, Kai'Sa isn't exactly a slouch when it comes to shoving, and it's always just worth checking your opponent, as Mickey goes in right away but gets body slammed. That is quite the annoying counter. What do you notice at this point about how the opponents are playing? Take a second to think. If you said they're playing really scared, yeah, we're honestly not really sure why or what they're afraid of, but they are. Rel just used W, so what's the threat? But Mickey isn't going to wonder why as his W comes up, he just moves forward, and look what that does to Jhin's positioning. By seeing they are scared and simply stepping forward a bit, he's really inhibiting Jhin's ability to spam push the wave, and this leads to them getting level 2 first despite having to leash. So that's how he avoided losing the initial push and control of the lane. He tries another engage, but Gragas is once again in position for that annoying counter. So when his W next comes off CD, sick of this Gragas nonsense, Mickey just flashes in, burning both of Jhin's sums and sending him back to base early. After, they naturally just try to shove out the wave before finally recalling. Now, as he's about to leave base, we see that Gragas is still in lane and hasn't even started his recall yet. As a response to this, we see Mickey just running straight back to bot lane rather than the very traditional movement of hovering mid, getting some vision, etc. before running back bot. And what Mickey is doing here is punishing the fact that Gragas is behind Jhin in tempo. We talk a bit on this channel about how, as the support, you want to be ahead of your ADC so that you can roam, get vision, then get back to lane at about the same time. But with Gragas being behind, Jhin is going to be alone in lane for quite a while here. Not only that, but as most of us know, with a clean crash happening before we based, the wave will almost always be bouncing back to us, meaning Jhin will have to move up in lane if he wants to play the game. Moving forward, we can see that Gragas, instead of basing, actually ran to the mid lane fight, but we still have the same opening here, so this is no problem. And we know the rest. Mickey instantly utilizes that incredible combo of Hex Flash Rel W to nearly pick up the kill on Jhin and send him back to base yet again. So, this was Mickey deviating from the standard easy play of roaming to or hovering mid to instead run straight back to bottom and punish Jhin for his Gragas being behind the play. But what if you aren't Rel, who can engage from off screen? And what if this isn't a Jhin who has no sums? What then? Well, like we mentioned earlier, that's really where that bouncing wave comes in. Even if you can't engage onto the ADC and send them back to base, you can still zone them out for the entire time until their support comes back and bails them out. So yeah, no matter what you're playing or what you're playing against, this situation will come up all the time. If you send that ADC back to base early, either with a kill or just a really good all-in, like in this game, the enemy support will often overstay to catch that XP at tower and then recall later, giving you this opportunity all the time. So consider just running straight back bottom for that easy, reliable 2v1 scenario. Alright, moving on to tip number 2 for this video. We're actually going to skip ahead to later in the game real quick before we come back, because this one is super closely tied to that first one. Anyway, here we are a bit after 5 minutes, with Mickey going in aggressively onto Jhin yet again, ending up in a trade of kills that should generally favor them with Kai'Sa staying alive and Jhin going down. But Moments later, we see that Orianna has roamed down, which leads to Gragas chasing Kai'Sa down the lane, helping to force the flash, before finally backing off into the brush, basically completely So we're seeing the similarities here, right? Gragas is almost surely going to recall, completely out of mana, and Jhin will be getting back well before him yet again. However, this time we see Mickey doing more of the standard play, kind of hovering between mid and bot, instead of running straight back to lane. What do you think the difference is here? Take a second to think. If you said that this time he's well ahead of Kai'Sa, nice job. So since he has so much extra time before Kai'Sa gets back to lane, there's really no reason to not at least take this path so that you have the choice of going mid if you want. If not, you can still run back bottom for that 2v1 timing. However, another good answer here would have been that, unlike the last time with Kai'Sa getting chased off, they weren't able to crash the wave before resetting. We can see that it's actually pushing into Jhin at the moment, so the ability to dive or zone him is not nearly what it was in that first example. So yeah, this was a really good call to hover toward mid lane here, where he does end up poking at Orianna. Even though this was unsuccessful, he still has time to get back bottom, so this was just a super low risk, potentially high reward play. Alright, moving on to tip number 3 here and jumping back a couple of minutes in the game. This is a quick one, but understanding this idea and consistently applying it in a variety of scenarios is absolutely crucial to succeeding in League, no matter what lane you play. So this was right after they sent Jhin back to base that second time. Mickey and Kai'Sa push the wave, then we see them moving up super aggressively, clearly posturing as if they want to dive here. Now, if you're like me, you might have some alarm bells going off in your head. There's no way that they can dive this Gragas, right? They have 0 of 4 sums, that's a full health Gragas with all of his abilities up. Kai'Sa is half HP, it just doesn't add up. So what the hell are they doing? Well, this is a concept that we often refer to as asking your opponent a question. Basically, Mickey knows that they can't dive this guy if he just stays under tower, but what he wants to find out is if Gragas knows that. If he doesn't, he might abandon tower, trying to E away and make a run for it, at which point they can engage on him and, at the very least, land some meaningful damage between the towers. Also, in this specific case, Gragas had vision of their jungler on Raptors, so he knows there wasn't a 3-man dive coming, but obviously that won't always be the case. Then Gragas might have a real reason to run, and you're essentially bluffing him into making a mistake by doing this. Anyway, in this case, Gragas did know the answer to our question and just stayed under tower, at which point Mickey just backs off, and this is totally fine. Our expectations when asking a question is never going to be that it will definitely work. The expectation is that if we do this 10 times in a game, 1 or 2 of those times, they won't know, and we can gain an advantage through this. A classic example of this concept is the level 2 spike. Some players don't try to execute perfect, clean level 2 spikes because they feel that everyone knows about it. It's too obvious. No one falls for that anymore, etc. But what's the cost of checking? Even if your opponent backs off 80% of the time, you're still giving yourself a better chance of winning in 20% of your games where you get that early push going. There's 1,000 different ways to utilize this idea, different questions to ask, different scenarios to ask in. So we'll continue to hit on this idea in our videos so that you can abuse it more and more and refine this aspect of your game that literally every high elo player abuses, especially when climbing out of low elo where players are significantly less likely to respond correctly. Awesome, moving on to tip number 4 here, we get to see how, despite Gragas picking up lots of solo XP throughout this lane, Mickey still managed to hit level 6 first. A bit later we see him engaging with that level 6 spike, destroying the enemy bot lane and really stamping himself on this game, not only with that kill for Kai'Sa, but the plate after as well. Now, obviously he didn't engage while Gragas was still level 5, so it may seem like him hitting 6 first didn't matter, but it was actually a pretty big deal, but that's going to be tip number 5. For number 4, we just want to focus on how he managed to catch up and even surpass Gragas in XP in the first place. For this, let's jump back a few minutes to here around 7 minutes as Mickey is making his way back bottom. If we look mid right now, here's what we see. As you can tell, Victor is basing, surely to teleport back, and Orianna is for sure going to base soon as well, right? And she doesn't have teleport up. Anyway, as we can see, Mickey ends up just sitting bottom for quite a while, basically alone in lane here with Kai'Sa as Jhin was recalling and Gragas went mid. If you've watched our videos enough or just played a lot of support, you'll hopefully once again have some alarm bells going off. Should he really just be sitting in lane for this long doing nothing? Shouldn't he be roaming, getting vision, something? And this is actually a really good instinct to have and what we want to instill in you here. Whenever you find yourself sitting in lane like this doing nothing but soaking XP, it should 100% prompt you very quickly to ask yourself if there's not something better that you could be doing. However, you shouldn't just leave purely based on instinct because you feel like you must be doing something else. In this situation, we knew that Orianna had based. Victor had really good vision topside, with Camille even hovering him at the start here, Hecarim nearby. There's really no absolute need for him to be mid right now. Victor does end up getting ganked later, but again, Hecarim was nearby and they saw it coming with that excellent vision and easily win the 2v2. Now, this isn't to say that going mid would have been the wrong play, simply that you don't always need to leave in these situations, and in this case, staying bottom and getting that XP was really beneficial for Mickey on this hyper-aggressive engaged support that really wants that level 6. Now, what about getting vision though? Shouldn't you just always get vision no matter what? Well, the nice thing about this scenario is that, as usual at a time like this, we're pushing the wave, right? So, we're about to have prio here, and before that, we know where the enemy team is. So you can just stay, get that XP, and as long as you don't immediately need vision, again, like he didn't here because he saw Echo and Gragas mid, you can just do it later. Get the XP first, and then go get vision while no minions are dying. So yeah, the summary here is that yes, you should have alarm bells when you're AFKing in lane, but don't just instantly leave no matter what. Think about what you can accomplish elsewhere and if it's worth the XP you'll lose. Usually it will be, but sometimes it won't. Awesome, moving on to our fifth and final tip for the video. Right here at 10 minutes, we see Mickey recalling on essentially full health and mana right as he hits level 6. This might look a little weird. Why not just hang out and grab XP or maybe do something on the map? Well, Mickey picks up Lucidity boots, and since he based specifically to buy them and another pink ward, it seems like he really wanted those boots. To see why, let's jump forward to when he's getting back to lane. We saw this earlier, but he instantly pulls the trigger, full on engaging, knowing that he has Kai'Sa to follow up, flashing in for that kill onto Jhin, and some damage onto Gragas as well. So why did Mickey recall for his cooldown boots? Well, first of all, when he was in lane there and initially hit 6, Jhin was mid, so he couldn't go in at that point. By basing for Lucidity boots first, he ensures that not only his ultimate, but his flash as well, an incredibly powerful tool on Rel, are up again as soon as possible, and he knew that he would flash engage the instant Jhin was back in lane. For any of you that might not know or might not know the exact numbers, grabbing those boots before flashing like that means it'll be up 33 seconds sooner. And as it turns out, we can see that later on, literally right as his flash is coming back up, he's in the middle of diving mid lane. He doesn't end up having to flash here, but having it available to him is part of what makes this such a safe dive, and the odds of him needing it here were definitely not zero. His flash was only up because he went back and bought those boots earlier. Obviously, this tip is a bit specific to the few Lucidity boots users out there, but this same idea can be used with any number of item spikes in any number of roles. Understanding your spikes or important buys that you can have before crucial moments is a core concept that runs all through League's bones. So thinking ahead, planning, and getting those items before you need them is going to help you out massively. Anyway, that does it for our 5 awesome support tips with G2's Mickey X. From here, he just goes on to stomp the game with some beautiful rel engages, leading to the victory. By the way, you should know where these videos come from. Our hyper improvement platform, SkillCapped, is by far the best place to be if you want to actually improve at League of Legends. You can input your rank before signing up to see where we think you'll climb to. If you don't reach that rank while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. That's like a gym membership guaranteeing that you'll get ripped. We offer this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't, then you shouldn't pay for it. So be sure to check us out after this. As always, thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this window into this brilliant support player, and we'll see you next time.